comments? So I make a motion, we close the public hearing?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now you're covered.
Shortest public hearing on record.
And now you got 13 minutes.
Can we 12? So much crap. Stuff's gotta go. I keep it for 2 months in case it comes back. And once it comes back, once it's approved, I can ready.
All in favor? So moved. Stand for pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, people. So to the point, nobody disagrees. We need more housing. The key word is affordable housing. This doesn't quite meet that standard, but so we need to have some more discussion. So the first issue before us, let me get the regs out. Let's do it. You have to do the minutes. I want to read the reg, but I lost it.
Want to approve the minutes first?
Oh, yes, thank you. Was there any addition or amendment to the minutes as presented? No. So do I have a motion to accept the minutes as submitted?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes so accepted. Let me find the reg so we can read it.
11640.
Mark, do you have the new map, by the way?
No, I don't have any map either.
You want to look at that? Which includes 10 or 11 parking spaces.
All right, so it hasn't been amended since the first time I saw it. Okay, so I read the reg, it's 116-40, Part A, Number 1, the multifamily dwelling shall occur only through conversion of a 1 or 2 family residence or other structure in existence at the time of adoption of this chapter. There was no other dwelling unit on this property, and as far as I know, there never has been. So the developer would require a use variance on that regulation. Are we prepared for
A use variance to build anything, right?
build anything, right? If he doesn't get this variance, he can't build anything, and in fact, the lot will be empty
Right.
in perpetuity until
Right.
we change the laws. So we're in agreement about the.
Build a house, it won't be empty in perpetuity.
So we're in agreement about the use variance?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, help me word this. I make a motion that we allow the use variance
Give the applicant
In-
relief
and to give the applicant in relief of regulation 116-40, Part A, Number 1, to allow him to build anything. And that was, who's the LLC? For the lot owned by APFU Licensed Limited Corporation. That cover it? So, do I have a second?
Do you want to speak on this? Does anybody want to speak on this?
Any more questions or any more commentary? Okay, I think we understand this issue so far. Okay, so we have a motion.
Motion.
I second the motion. All in favor?
No, no, no.
No,
Roll
it's
call.
roll call
Oh,
vote.
sorry.
roll call. Mark Lodi,
Yes.
Gary Guglielmetti,
Yes.
Alan Vella,
Yes.
Christian Lynch.
Yes.
Henry Williams.
Yes.
So moved. Thank you, folks.
Now we gotta open up the other.
Okay, so the developer has the right to build something. What does he have the right to build? Further on in Reg 116-40, no more than, no individual, number 4, no individual multifamily structure shall contain more than 4 residential units.
In
So
one
that's
structure.
the reg on the, no, it says no individual multifamily structure. So the applicant is asking for 7 dwelling units, 7 attached dwelling units. Is that exactly what it would look like?
It is?
Okay.
Yeah. It's a motel.
Unless the planning board gets involved with the
We're not stopped.
the aesthetic value of it, or the...
We don't know. Yeah. Yeah, we can't regulate what it looks like.
That's an old rendering, right? Because that doesn't show the parking in its correct location.
Oh. Right. These are 1 bedroom, how many square feet? 14 by
Was
40,
it 500 something square feet?
560. So these are 1 bedroom, they're not multi-generational family units. And they are being offered for rental, is that correct? They're being offered as rental?
Long-term.
Just use the term long-term, vague.
One or two are a little larger.
Is the applicant flexible about the design of the buildings, you know, the facades?
But he doesn't have much of a whole lot of areas to choose from, because as you see out there, you've got the power line behind him, and you've got the setbacks from the highway, and the zoning setbacks from the side. So he's, doesn't have a whole lot of
Well,
room to choose.
instead of them being like flat all the way across, you know, they could be like one here, one setback, one, you know what I mean, staggered, to give it some sort of depth and architectural value to the look of the...
Do that. Stay here and look at the setbacks.
Yeah, there's a mountain in the backyard.
You can't get within that right away of the lines.
And those are overhead lines and the declension's 15 feet, I think? Okay. So we have competing regs. 162-40, number 4, no individual multifamily structure shall contain more than 4 residential units. So if we were to build more than 4 residential units, we would need a variance. Okay, and then under cluster development,
That's not what we were reviewing. He's not applied for a cluster development. It's an
No, no.
entirely different thing.
No, but he needs an area variance.
In relief of
Yeah,
one
I'm
sixteen
leaving it to-
forty,
yeah,
certainly,
yeah.
but you can't take the regs for cluster development into consideration
No,
if
no,
you're
he's
determining
not.
how many
He's not.
units there can be.
No, no, no.
It's-
But he can get relief from this board, an area
He
variance.
can, yes, of course, but not based on cluster regs.
No,
was,
no, we're not giving him anything
Okay,
from
okay.
cluster.
oh, but it is a cluster development, is
It
it
is
not?
absolutely not a cluster development.
No.
I offered Mr. Whitehead the option of applying for a cluster development, and I didn't hear from him for 6 months. So,
But that is a mechanism for him to
That
get
he does.
6 units.
Well, I think what Mark was saying, and I don't wanna put words in his mouth, is that, in the code, not particularly in 116-40, but in 116-32, in the code, for a residential property designated R 1.5, that there is a vehicle in the code to build 6 units.
If Mr. White Dempsey wanted to apply
No,
for
no,
that,
I'm
yes.
just
Well, he
saying,
has it, so
has
what's
nothing
not-
to
It
do
does-
with,
Okay.
we're not talking about cluster development, just in the code itself.
Cluster development code? You are talking about cluster
No, no, I'm
development.
talking about Shandaken code, not a particular item in the code,
So-
not an article.
So you're saying the cluster development reg is off the table?
No.
Yeah.
Because he has
Unless Mr. White Dempsey wants to do that, yes. If Mr. White Dempsey wanted to develop a cluster development, he'd have never come to this board.
Wouldn't have to.
No. But he didn't want to do that. He wants to do multifamily, and so you have to address the multifamily.
But I think what's of note here is that there is a mechanism to achieve 6 units in the cluster development.
Theoretically, yes.
Theoretically, there is a mechanism, and he has chosen not to, and instead has chosen to go for a variance
Yes.
to get 6 or 7,
As a
when only
multifamily.
4 are allowed.
116,
As a multifamily, not
Yeah.
as a cluster.
under
Exactly,
Article
understood.
116-40,
Absolutely.
yeah, A4.
So is there appetite on this board to limit him to 4 units?
Yes, for me, yes.
Not for me, I don't think it's, doesn't, I'm just looking at it in the code itself, not
I hear you.
11640, but in the code book. On a 1.5 acre parcel zone residential, it gives you the right to
Yes,
build
yes, everybody
6.
agrees.
If you get a special use
let me
permit
finish,
for a
let me-
cluster
let me finish,
development.
please let me finish.
Go ahead.
Go.
In the book itself,
There is
if he takes another avenue, or wish to take another avenue to develop what he wants to develop, in the code book, on a 1.5 residentially zoned property, he can build 6 attached houses in the code book.
May I?
Go ahead.
He could theoretically build 6 attached if he could prove that he could legally subdivide the lot into 6 separate lots. Conditioned on on a promise that he would never subdivide and instead would cluster all of that residential development into one area and leave the rest of the land open. You must prove first that you can subdivide the lot into 6 separate acres, and then all of that density gets clustered into one building. That's how cluster works, not to mention,
Doesn't say that in cluster.
it absolute, I will, yeah,
Okay.
I'll find it. Not to mention the other requirements of cluster
So you're
development.
saying
Yes,
this
it
would be-
absolutely
Because
says that.
in cluster development, it gives you R5, which isn't, which isn't so dense, and you're only allowed to do like 3
4.
in R5 or 4.
4.
And then it goes down to R3, and that's less dense than R5. And then it goes down to R1.5, and it says that in R1.5, you can have 6 attached. And for cluster development, you need a minimum of 6 to even apply for cluster development.
May I?
Yes.
Under cluster development, the maximum number of dwelling units that may be permitted and approved with a cluster development shall not exceed the number of lots shown on an approvable sketch plat for lot by lot development.
So you're saying if there's
That's if
6,
they're separate.
You
Cluster
have to prove
development.
that you could separate them and then you cluster it into one.
so it would require the
Lots
subdivision.
shown on the sketch plat shall be fully consistent with both the lot area and bulk regs of the zoning districts in which it's just located. Health department has to approve it for the
Yeah.
streets. Plating shall be restricted to the portions of the site which are considered by the planning board to be suitable for residential building development. It has to be an approvable, not an approved, but an approvable plat showing that it could be subdivided.
That's why we need to go for a cluster.
Yeah,
You can't subdivide.
and also under cluster, there
Can't do
are,
that, so it's
Yeah.
off the table, period.
You want to kill the whole project?
No, that's off the table. Well, the cluster is
The
off the
cluster is
table.
off the
He
Well, he
didn't
didn't
apply for it.
anyway.
He didn't apply
Okay.
for it, and we're not talking about that.
Well, it was
We're
referenced by the,
dealing with
it was
116.
referenced by the planning board in the very first meeting, so it has come up. Okay, I'm glad we got that addressed. So the cluster development issue is off the table.
Right.
Is that all correct?
Yeah, he
Grace, you're
never
not falling
applied for it.
asleep, are you?
no,
Okay, so we're left dealing with 140, dash number 4.
11640.
11640, number 4. No individual multifamily structure shall contain more than 4 residential units. So your client has gained the use variance, so he can build something. We now run into the issue of item number 4, that he's only allowed to build 4 units.
Right.
What do you suggest we do about that?
That's a variance he's looking for.
There's an area variance that we have to address on that. There's 2 area
Yes.
variances that we've held in abeyance and continued with the 30-day continuance.
This
The
number,
last 2 meetings on 2 area variances. One is 116A2 and the other one is 116A4. One is density and the other is how many units you can have in one structure.
116A2 is the number of dwelling units located on a lot shall not exceed the density otherwise applicable to 2-family dwellings within the applicable zoning district. I personally think 7 units is really shoehorning this in. I'm concerned about parking, I'm concerned about access egress. What is the appetite of the board? You want to discuss those 7 units?
I'd like to get it down under 7 for sure.
Yeah. I would say 6, just based on what we, I'm not gonna mention it again, but based on the discussion we just
I
had.
don't get that. I'm glad he wants to build, and if he's allowed to build 4, that's where I'm heading towards. I think it's, like you said, shoehorned in, too big for the site. Parking, on the road, right off the road there, it just, to me, changes the character of the neighborhood. It's a large development. I agree, we need housing. I don't want, and he has every right to build what he can build legally.
What do you think the character of the neighborhood should look like on Route 28, as opposed to what it looks like now?
Not that.
You sound like somebody on the planning board.
Yeah. It is a
Well,
secret.
these are all individual things. These are personal opinions, when I look at something like that on the road, that close to the road, it doesn't do it for me. You may feel differently, and that's fine. That's why we're here.
It is a scenic byway.
Well, my issue is that if this was in a strictly residential area, I'd be so opposed to it that you wouldn't believe.
Really?
But honest to God, if it was in your neighborhood or my neighborhood,
See, I would feel
I would
differently
be
about it.
totally opposed to it. I have no, but this is Route 28, which is basically spot zoned all the way up from Olive to, Bel Air. And,
The
it's
applicants,
a highway, it's not, and it is a scenic byway, I agree, but we've let people build fences and everything
Well,
else
again-
along that scenic highway that isn't in the character of the neighborhood either.
Well, because somebody's done it before doesn't mean I have to agree that
No,
we
no,
should do
no,
it again.
but you were part of what they did before.
I wasn't.
Yes. But, that's my only thing. If 11632 wasn't in there, I would agree with you totally, but I'm just looking at it that way.
To me, there's no difference between 6 and 7, to be quite honest.
No, well, there is, it's so many feet.
you got an opinion on this?
I agree with Alan, 4 or 5.
Okay, so
Should we issue a conditional variance saying he's limited to 5? Can we legally enforce that?
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, we have.
The variance applied for is to construct 3 additional units.
It would
So
be a
could you just-
conditional variance. We've done that before.
No, yeah, it's not a matter of conditional, it's a matter of that's not what he applied for. So technically what he applied for, you're denying, but you can add the condition that while you're denying the 7, you're approving however many.
That's right.
Although if you land at 4, you're just gonna deny the 7. If you landed anything over 4, then you're gonna do your conditional variance.
So my question is that legal? Can we
I
do
assume
that?
so.
We've
I'm not
done
a
it.
lawyer.
We've done it before.
Yes.
what if he just built, he can build 2 right now, like a 2-family house, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Then he can build an accessory structure, right?
No,
He can't?
no, you're only allowed 2 livable spaces on one piece of property.
Well, how did that happen in Christie Court? They've got like 6.
They do not have, I don't know where this rumor started, I've heard this 8 times this week. The property on Christie Court has 2 livable units. A garage and a treehouse.
No, it's got 2 houses.
I did the site visit myself 6 weeks ago. It's
It
got
isn't a
2
garage.
houses, a treehouse, and they just started the construction on the
Oh,
garage.
yeah, yeah.
Well, anyway, that's a done deal. We're not dealing with that.
That's a-
But I mean, that property has that,
It has 2 livable units, yes,
yeah.
and that's all they're allowed.
And if this,
And a third one going up.
No,
And if
that's a
this
garage. You guys,
is
you
there.
guys approved the variance on that garage. You know it's a garage.
It's a
That's a
storage
done
space.
deal. Yeah,
You
that's-
approved it.
the
You
garage.
know
Yeah,
what
yeah.
it is.
But the garage is underneath, there's a top floor, that's a
Yes,
storage.
they're building it exactly as they presented it to this board.
We know
What's gonna
what
happen
exactly
with
what
that.
it's gonna be.
Right.
Yeah, but that doesn't affect this issue.
No.
These are separate issues.
I mean, my opposition really to this is, to the 7, is the parking. Like, we're talking about 11 spots, I believe? Is that right?
One and a
Right.
half per
Yeah.
unit.
1.5.
And so, to me, the parking, it was always an issue. And have you guys looked at putting the parking behind the building? Is that even possible?
no, because
It's not possible because of the power lines? Uh-huh. So, I mean, going down to 5 units would make it what, 8 spots? I think that makes a difference for me, if we could get the parking down.
I could live with 5.
I could live with 5. Don, do you have any sense that 5 units would allow a profit margin to the developer?
I know we studied it pretty firmly, and that's why he came up with 7.
yeah,
I think 7 is excessive.
Well, 5 might make it worthwhile too. I mean, there's nothing there now, so.
I think 5 would be more appealing as far as parking is concerned, as far as the massing along
I
28.
figure
Sorry?
you have a tenant, permanent tenant.
Yeah.
If it's a husband and wife, they're gonna have 2 cars, so if you got 7, there's 14 cars right there.
Yeah.
Legally,
5, you only have 10 cars, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but legally, we only
Was just a code.
required 1.5
Is what the code reads.
parking spaces per
But-
unit.
So
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, 7 would be.
But you know they're gonna have 2. There's-
Of course, well, if you got, right around here, how you gonna have 1 car? If they work in separate places, where are you gonna go 1 car?
How would that work? We allow the variance with 4 units, but put a conditional variance that he's allowed 5 units.
We're just allowing
No,
5 units
No,
without
you deny the variance for 7.
and allow it for 5.
I think you have to deny it
Yeah,
for 7.
you gotta deny the 7
Can
and
somebody make a motion to that effect? Any more discussion?
No,
Any
that's-
more
no.
questions for Mr. Brewer?
No, I'm 5, I'm fine with.
I'd like to make a motion. On 116-40A4, that we deny the area variance for 7, but we'll give him relief in that particular section to build 5, and no more than 5.
So we have a motion for a conditional variance.
Does that sound, Grace, how does that sound?
Sounds beautiful to me.
and this does go back to the planning board now?
Has to.
It's going
I
to.
love that girl.
And they have the final say on what,
Yes. They can't supersede you, like if he comes back to them with 6, they have to say no. But so long as he falls within the boundaries that you've created, then yes, they have final authority over screening and all that.
Could you please reread the motion, so we all understand it?
I sure can. Board Member Williams made a motion to 116-40A4 to deny the area variance for 7 units, but are giving him relief to build 5 units and no more than 5 units.
And put the word conditional variance.
Oh, yes.
You guys okay with that?
Do we add parking to this with 8 spots or 1 point?
Parking, I think that's planning.
There's
board,
already-
is that-
That's already
site plan
determined.
review,
There's already a rig on the books, they're
Okay.
allowed
1.5.
It's a requirement of 1.5
That's
parking
one,
units per.
that's 1 car and a scooter.
Nobody should drive a scooter.
How about an electric bike?
I know someone who did and crashed.
And what? More parking areas, yes, correct. Correct. They're obligated to give 1.5 parking units per dwelling unit. That would be 7.5 parking units.
yep.
with the option of doing more. The other condition is, do we want to write in a condition where there is a screen between the parking area and Route 28?
I think the planning board is gonna do that, right? They do the screening and,
Yes.
That should be.
architectural, character of the neighborhood. That'll all be part of the site
Signage.
plan review.
Absolutely.
So,
Now, that leaves us with 116-40
You haven't gotten a
A2.
second on this motion.
Yeah, still need a second.
Wait,
We're still working on
out.
it.
Oh,
We're
okay.
still working on it. Can we limit the parking to 8 spots rather than saying minimum 8 spots? Can we limit it to 8?
It's all part of the site plan review, though.
But the minimum is 7.5, but are we able to limit the maximum?
no, that is the maximum, isn't it?
No, that's the minimum required for.
Yeah,
Minimum
yeah,
requirements.
So
He's allowed to put
I'd
more.
like to, I'd like to,
That's
I'd
a
like
Oh,
to
yeah,
That's a good
limit
point.
I agree.
it. I'd like to limit it to the,
Ask Grace.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't, the issue of parking has not come before this board. I don't believe you're in a place where you can make comment in regards to parking. You're certainly well within your rights when it comes for site plan review to contact contact the planning board and express your concern regarding parking to them so that they can address it through their review process.
Good
But
point.
since there's no application before this board in regards to parking, I don't know that it's appropriate to add conditions about parking. But again, I'm not a lawyer, thank God. So at the end of the day, it's up to you.
certainly have to limit it.
Do you want to amend the resolution?
Can we do that?
I would like to, I would like to
If we
limit
can
the
do that,
parking
I
if we
would.
can.
I mean, we can give a conditional variance, whether or not parking applies to that.
Yeah,
It's
what
part of
it's
the
trying to
planning
say.
board's operation.
The planning,
Well, can they overrule it? If they overrule it, they overrule it.
They could
That doesn't mean
still
we should put our
issue-
opinion on it.
Correct, they could still issue the special permit regardless of our opinion.
Right,
That's
so
correct.
I feel like, I don't know.
it'd be nice to have it on record.
I wouldn't mind having that on.
You can add to it then with the parking limited to X amount of spaces.
8 spaces.
8 spaces.
Based on the Shandaken parking code for
Right.
attached or multifamily
That's
housing.
that's very restrictive.
Wow,
That's
I know.
incredibly restrictive.
Why?
I'm no, just going down the line, assuming that Mr. Rydemski wants to build the 5 unit instead of the 7. If he ends up with 5 units with married couples,
It's 2 cars.
there's not gonna be anywhere for them to park.
Yeah, that's one of the issues up here is that
We can limit
everybody
it to
needs a
10.
car.
It's very restrictive.
Well, that's why 7 seem,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a tremendous parking lot for 7 units.
I don't like that the regs state that you only need to park 1.5 spaces for multi-dwelling. I think that's silly. I live in a 2-family, and we have way more cars than people. It's
Yeah,
a
well, that reg was from 1976, where,
Yeah,
so.
I'm just saying, you may be creating a problem that you'll have to address going down the line.
Well, that would probably be up to the planning board to
It's, yeah.
overcome or supersede that.
I'm fine with that.
It's their purview, they're gonna require the minimum, but the max.
Yeah.
What could be the max?
Do you want to add verbiage to that resolution?
I mean,
How many are in that stretch? No, I know there's 11 there altogether, right? So,
could they add more?
in effect, you're not
5
changing
units,
anything.
Could they
2 cars a
add
unit would be 10.
Well, I mean, can the condition be that they follow this plan? Like, that we see a plan before we approve it with the parking spots?
I don't think we can do that. I think
Yeah,
that's-
this plan isn't representative of what we're asking for. So
Is
can
this-
we actually, no,
Is this,
because this has 7. What we're asking for is 5 units now. Wouldn't we want to see the parking layout?
You can deny the 7 and ask him to reapply for 5, I suppose. But that application's gonna have to go back before public hearing, you're gonna start right at the beginning again.
yeah, let's get this.
Limit it to 10?
Yeah, it's 2 a unit.
For 2 units?
Yeah, it's 2 a unit.
That's
I
not
mean, I
even
don't know
14.
if it's gonna fly, but
2 per unit?
That sounds,
Yeah,
Well,
more than that.
Yeah, that's it.
If we're gonna allow 5 units, we gotta allow 10 parking spots.
Yeah.
Unless you go to 4, then you have 8. That's why 7 was totally absurd.
Let's do 10.
I'll be down with that.
She's had enough.
She's had it.
So, okay, do you want to add
She
that?
drove Grace out of here.
Yeah, can we add,
That's the first, I think.
It is the first.
could we amend that to limit the parking to 10 spots, 2 per unit?
Yeah, into the,
Could we do that, Grace? Put a limit on the number of spaces to
2 per unit?
2 per unit with a
you-
maximum of 10 spaces based on the
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 5?
limited amount of frontage?
We can write it in the regs.
Yes, absolutely.
Well,
Yes, it is.
they'll have to,
Well, maybe though, I mean, it's just,
They would have the ability to supersede this, I believe, if they so choose.
It is their purview, though.
so it's just our opinion.
There's nothing wrong with making a recommendation to the planning board.
So why don't we do that? Do the motion with the recommendation to the planning board that we would hope that they would limit the
to 2.
parking to 10 spaces, 2 per unit.
Are conditional variances allowed? Are they legal, conditional variances?
Yeah, you guys have more authority than I think you do.
Yeah.
My issue with your addressing the parking is simply that an application regarding the parking is not before this board.
Yeah.
But you're well within your rights to make conditions.
No, but it's part of
Of course you are.
the parcel that we're looking at. Yes,
Well, I think
we
it's-
can
I
issue
think it-
conditional
Yeah,
variances.
because I think it's a part of the limited space with the 5 units, the limited frontage, that make a recommendation to the planning board that this is what we recommend, and whether they take it or not, I don't know. And I don't know if it's even legal to put in the area variance. Because that's not what was requested of us.
So you're suggesting this comes not in the form of a variance, but in the form of a recommendation to the planning board, correct?
the parking.
Yes,
For parking.
if you can do that.
I
Legally.
guess you can do that. I don't know how enforceable
A
it is.
recommend,
It's a recommendation.
Yeah,
It's not enforceable because it's
it's
a
not
recommendation.
enforceable, no.
But frankly, I don't know that your recommendation inside of a variance for the number of dwelling units and tacking on parking, I don't know how enforceable that is either, to be perfectly honest.
I think maybe a conditional variance would be enforceable. A recommendation is just a recommendation, isn't it?
I don't think so.
Is a conditional variance legal? That's,
Yes, we have offered conditional variances in the past.
Area variances,
Whether or
yeah.
not they're enforceable, it's another issue.
well,
That's always the issue.
that's the point, right?
They're enforceable. You guys did the conditional variance actually for Christie Court. They wanted it much higher than it ended up being.
That's right.
And that was a conditional variance.
Right.
Then
Yeah,
they made it,
that was the
then
first
they,
time.
then they went out, they spread it out that way.
They did, yes.
They said they lost some airspace up here, so they took that airspace and went this way.
It's huge, and now I get nothing but complaints about that garage. So thanks, guys.
SECRA, is the SECRA?
I knew that was gonna be trouble.
Relevant here? SECRA, the SEQ or SECRA?
Seeker will be done by planning board. They may
Yeah,
decide
they
to
do
hire out a
secret.
consultant, I don't know, but either way, Seeker will be taken care of.
Yeah.
They do that.
So
They do
it's-
site plan review, parking, the architectural character of the
that again?
neighborhood.
So it seems like the way going forward is we put a conditional variance limiting parking to 10 units, and then it will be up to the planning board to adjudicate that.
Kiddo,
Should we-
Can you offer verbiage to that effect?
Does it have to be in a
I-
conditional variance? I mean, you're giving them a variance,
As
relief,
opposed to,
relief of that for 5 units, and then a conditional, I don't understand. A conditional variance for 10 parking units?
yes. Yeah.
So it's gonna be separate than,
2 variants.
No, I mean, we read into the same
Single variance.
resolution. As opposed to a recommendation, which has no teeth
yeah,
whatsoever.
yeah.
Should we hear that again? Can you do that again, Olivia?
yeah. Without the parking included,
No, with the parking.
or with
They
what
want the
what was
parking
just
included, but
discussed?
they wanted a conditional variance on them?
Okay, what I've got here
I think that's the
is,
best way to go.
Board Member Williams made a motion to 116-40A4 to deny the area variance for 7 units, but to give the applicant relief to build 5 units, no more than 5 units. And the Zoning Board of Appeals would like like to make a recommendation to the planning board for the applicant to only have 10 spaces, parking spaces for the unit. The
So that's a
building.
recommendation, that's not a conditional variance.
Right.
So you
Sorry
understand
if
the
that
difference,
was
right?
wonky.
I don't think you could put a conditional variance on parking, because that's part of the planning board's.
But we're not, so.
Just
It's a
making a
recommendation.
recommendation.
It's a recommendation, so I think that's all we can do.
Any other comments?
You'd have got a
I think
unit,
Yeah.
No, we couldn't give a conditional variance. It's been done many
but
times.
how do you say that? What I'm trying to say, we already gave him a variance on 5 units, right?
Well,
So how do you put a conditional variance in? Does it
So
part of
so
the
long
5
as he
units
holds
and
to
then
10
the parking?
parking spots.
yes.
Or is it
Yeah.
5 units and then conditional variance on the parking? They don't appear to-
Well,
Yeah.
well, no, you
Totally agree.
you make
Yeah, totally
the
agree.
the use variance contingent on the 5 units, and you allow, you grant them a 10-unit parking area.
I think we grant them the 5 units
Conditional?
on the condition that they limit the
These-
parking to 10.
Gary says it right.
Yeah.
5, a conditional area variance on the 5 units, no more than 5, and with no more than 10 parking.
What were they applying for parking originally?
I
There's
don't
no
know.
application before
Yeah.
this.
We never got into it
But they're
because
showing, but it's what, I'm just going by the drawing. What they're showing is what they're, I'm assuming what they're proposing. That was 11.
Well, who knows what that plan's gonna look like when he gets it down to 5?
All right, so if they would've
Yeah,
had,
it's
if they would've had the 7 units, 11
spaces is
Yeah,
based
we-
on
what
height
worked out, that would've been a problem.
Yeah.
in itself. So
Well, it's-
we've alleviated one problem.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew.
It's limited land to put these parking areas
Yeah,
on, so
Yeah.
you're shoehorning it in. Okay, so where did we leave it? You,
A conditional variance for 5 units, limiting the parking to 2 spots per
Per
unit.
unit.
total of 10 units.
Yeah.
As a
10 spots. 10
Now,
parking
10
spots.
parking spots.
now, there's one more area variance that they requested, that they had to, which was 116-40A2, which is the density.
Okay, well, first of all, let's sign off on this resolution that is before us.
Right, you need a second.
Second.
Okay. And then roll
Okay,
call.
and
Right, okay,
You need
Mark
a roll call
Lodi,
vote.
yeah, yes.
Gary Guglielmetti,
Yes.
Alan Vella,
Yes.
Christian Lynch.
Yes.
Henry Williams.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, now we still have the open area variance for number 2. 116A2, which is the density.
The number of dwelling units located on a lot shall not exceed the density otherwise applicable to 2-family dwellings within the applicable zoning district.
I still don't know what that means.
I don't either.
I mean, I understand the density, but the 2 with the hyphen dwelling units is what gets me. I don't understand what they're saying exactly.
So a two-family is it's a
Is it-
two-family
they
over
took it
the
up-
required zone is 1.5, so 2 over 1.5 is. Don't make me do math. 1.33, so the
1.33.
requested density is 4.66. Well, now down to 5 over, so.
So it's okay. Do we even need that variance? that
I don't,
area
at
variance?
5, I don't think so.
I don't think
Yeah, I
so.
don't think so either.
I wouldn't just leave it. But yeah, no, it doesn't. Not with 5, no, the density is no longer an issue.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's off the table.
yeah. So it should be part of the minutes that
No longer applicable.
variance.
So 116-40A, number 2 becomes moot because of the previous,
Because of the amount of
Variance
units, dwelling units.
He's fine.
Mr. Brewer, do you have anything else to add? Okay, thank you. Thank you for your patience. We're trying to work our way through
And
this.
thank you for your input of the planning board and all of that, the information that you have. We appreciate that.
This has become a hot button issue because of the lack of affordable housing everywhere in the country, basically. So it's become somewhat of a flashpoint for our local politics. Thank you for your patience. Anything to add? Any?
I have one.
Any old business, new business?
I have one,
Old business?
if you're ready. Are we all familiar with the Wayside Inn? Does everybody know what that is?
Yes.
Yeah.
You
The
know
Wayside.
No, I don't.
So if you're heading, like, you're on 28 going to Big Indian, on the right, there's that big lake.
Yes.
Okay, so around that lake, there's cottages, and there used to be an old inn with a building,
Yes.
there's a bunch of little buildings.
Where
Okay,
the
that's
islands are.
Wayside.
Where the islands are, the pond.
Yes,
over
yes,
there.
absolutely.
Okay.
So that has new owners. They've been renovating the structures. He's sort of going through it piece by piece, one at a time. He's looking at doing the inn next. And a part of that is he wants to change, not change the sign, he wants to replace the sign. And the sign he wants to put in is a little bit bigger, really not by much, but it's definitely a little bit bigger, like by a square
So
foot.
you think he needs a variance?
I'm asking you if you think they need one.
And this would go where the current sign is?
It's going in the exact same place, the same exact setbacks, it's wider
Okay.
than the existing sign.
Is there an application before us, or you just?
No, I'm
put-
wondering if there needs to be, that's exactly what I'm wondering, because
I mean,
it's a pre-existing non-conforming
yeah, I
sign.
mean,
It's in the same spot. Really
I know, but
doesn't-
technically it's a pre-existing non-conforming sign, and he's,
Yeah.
and he's
building
only, it's only a
something
couple of
different.
feet. Yeah,
it's
so-
literally 1.03 square feet bigger than the existing,
Yeah, so,
And he's
I mean,
replacing
It's
the old
just-
sign.
It's 1 inch taller,
Yeah.
right?
I think,
1
yeah.
inch taller.
Oh, boy.
That's
I
the
would
problem.
say,
So I don't,
why make it
I don't
bigger?
particularly have a problem with it, but I don't wanna overstep without asking.
Also,
it's
it's not
much wider.
visible from Route 28,
It is
so
That sign, no, I
Much
don't think so.
it's not,
10
because there's so
feet.
much growth between there.
10 feet.
10 foot.
Yeah.
Even if it is, it's been there forever.
When you say the inn, what are you referring to?
So if you're on Fire, is that
I'm very familiar with it.
Firehouse, so as you're coming off 28 on Firehouse, the inn's on the left. It's
Yeah, the
a
big
kind of
structure,
Victorian
big house.
looking,
That huge
Yeah.
house,
what,
he's
two
turning
and a
it
half story,
into
yeah.
inn,
And it was an
okay.
11 room inn, essentially. So he'll reopen that,
Yeah.
but just the rooms, like he's not gonna open it to the public, there's not gonna be a restaurant or anything. There might be in the future, but right now, it's just, our lodging. yeah, because it's a pre-existing non-conforming use, he doesn't need any extra approvals from the town to operate the way it is.
I'm very familiar. That's where we used to stay when we would
They're
come up.
doing really, if it makes anybody
Oh, really?
difference to anybody, they're doing really beautiful work there.
Really?
Oh, great.
It's really pretty.
Yeah, that's a signature property. I stayed there a lot when I was
Did
staying
you?
in New York City and we'd come up on
That's
weekends.
fun.
Yeah, I know it very well. It's an old building.
No, yeah.
It used to be a cow pasture that excavated lake, and the Cernovics were excavators, so they excavated the lake, and it was a dairy farm.
Okay.
And at least one of those outbuildings was the cow barn.
Oh, that's fun. I have no idea.
Yeah. All right, so we don't need a variance.
No.
Thank you.
If he would've, if he would've just did it, who would ever notice?
Nobody. Nobody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
This place is like-
Have a safe home.
Thanks,
Don.
Don.
This is a lot wider.
Are we off?
What else? Is there any new business?
10
Any
feet?
communication?
Yeah,
Yeah,
10 foot.
it's 10 foot,
It's
yeah.
twice as-
it's
it's
twice,
twice as
twice
wide
as
as-
wide. How is that?
How does
Is
that
it-
only?
and it's
one
only-
square
Well,
foot?
I'm talking about the square footage of the
Footage,
sign
yeah,
itself,
sign.
not the whole,
Not the
Not
height
the
of the
whole
width.
structure?
yeah.
Square
Okay.
footage.
Yeah,
would be-
but
What I concern myself with
even
is the
if
sign,
it's,
not the
even if
structure.
it's twice as wide, like 6 cars go by there a day.
I know,
Yeah.
it's not a place
Yeah.
where it would be.
And
It's not
frankly,
like
the
high
sign as it
traffic.
sits.
Yeah,
And it's not like it wasn't there. There's a
Right.
sign there now.
And actually,
It's
I,
there.
and there's a
Okay,
sign there now, it's probably been there and I've never even noticed it.
Yeah.
You can't even see it from Route 28 because there's so much growth of those willows. Yeah, housing, hot button issue, you gotta deal with it. So any other old business? Any other new business? May I make a motion to close the meeting?
I make a motion to close the meeting.
I second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved.
Ooh.